About 30 seconds.
Okay. Trey, good to see you, brother. The Hat Man.
Good to see you too, as well as usual. All right, welcome. We are live. This is the Cigar Chronicles podcast. I am one half of your dynamic host. I am Tremont Arnold.
And I'm Ernest Tiller.
And we are definitely glad to be here. We definitely have a legend, a pioneer, an architect, a Renaissance man. But like I said, we're going to get into the introduction later. We definitely want to give a shout out to BS3 Network for the opportunity to host a podcast. And we have the political podcast, I must say, in the Metroplex. And eventually we have the one that's going to represent the state. But, enough bragging on our podcast. We definitely want to give a shout out to Roku TV and all the podcast affiliates that give us the opportunity and the space to host our political podcast. Also, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Crowns by Trey, Lids. Also, we have Soul Brother Cigars, as well as last but not least, Wing Snob. They just have better wings. If you have not been a Wing Snob, you are missing a treat. They do not freeze their wings; they marinate the wings. So we definitely give a shout out to Wing Snob. And I'm sending over to my co-host Ernest to give the introduction of our guest today.
Thank you, Tremont. Well, we have the privilege and the honor of having Honorable Carol G. Robinson. Carol G. Robinson is state chairman of Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. Chairman Robinson is an attorney and college professor who has taught law school and served as an at-large Houston City Council member, president of Texas Association of Black City Council Members, as well as trustee of the Houston Community College System. Chairman Robinson is a past president of the Houston Lawyers Association and the former chairman of the Houston Citizens Chamber of Commerce, now known as the Greater Houston Black Chamber of Commerce. Chairman Robinson has also served on the board of directors of the National League of Cities, the Houston Galveston Area Council, Houston Firefighters Relief and Retirement Pension, and on the executive committee of the NAACP Houston branch, where he served as a vice president treasurer. Chairman Robinson currently serves as a member of the board of directors of Democracy Counts, a technology-based solutions nonprofit organization focusing on empowering individual citizens to help protect and advance democracy. Welcome, Honorable Robinson.
Thank you, man. Listen, all I know is I need a hat. And if I smoke, I'd be puffing on a cigar too. This is the place to be.
I got you.
Your reach is way across the state already.
Thank you.
Not just the Metroplex. Trey, thank you for the invitation. You know, as they would say in the old days, Trey and I are down like two flat tires, man. Good friend, great partner in politics across the state. Ernest, it's a pleasure to meet you. I thought he said Ernest the greatest when he introduced you. So I was like, all right.
Well, again, it's a pleasure having you on here, buddy.
Y'all got to come down to Houston, and I got a bunch of buddies that are big time cigar smokers, and if the tech will travel, we can get it done so we can host y'all at a cigar bar down here.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Yes,
Most
sir.
definitely. Well, we definitely want to go ahead and get into the questions. I'm gonna actually start off with the first one, and I know that this is a good one. In your opinion, why do blacks tend to vote Democrat rather than independent?
Well, I'll say it as simple and as straightforward as I can. Democrats are smart, statistical voters, and independents have not shown that they can field any kind of candidate, whether that be the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and black voters don't like to waste their vote. So the reality is when you have two realistic choice, the better of the two choices are Democrats, and the Republican Party continues in the modern era to show they really aren't interested in having the support of black voters. So, when people don't invite you over, they don't ask you your opinion, they aren't welcoming. In my family, we don't go across the lawn. We stay over at our house and we go to the neighbors that invite us over and are courteous to us. When they pull in the evenings, they get out the car and they say, hello, neighbor, how are you doing? So I think that's just a practical reality of why so many African Americans vote for the Democratic Party. We could go along with all the policy proposals in the modern era of American politics. And when you do it from that perspective, the reality is that the Democratic Party, after it shook off its segregationist past, has been the more quote unquote progressive party in America. It's passed more of the policies that have helped black people move into full citizenship. I won't get into a constitutional discourse, but citizenship really is a word and a status that's still in debate in America.
Okay. Also want to ask, I'm just going to kind of skip around, Ernest. Do you think the black vote is for sale?
No. See, people make this mistake. They always try to apply a double standard to black people and other people of color. So nobody says the white vote is for sale when you hire a white consultant and pay them millions of dollars to allegedly talk to white and black people. When you hire a black consultant, a black business person, that just so happens that their business is participating in the political system and showing candidates how to communicate to black voters, how to identify and turn out black voters, all of a sudden, black voters are for sale. Now, I don't know black voters who get money from candidates directly. I know business people, white, black, Hispanic, and Asian, who are hired in the political system. So to disrespect the business person and then to impute a lack of ethics and character on black folk because black business people are making money just shows you the kind of double standards that still exist. If we were for sale, I'll take my reparations right now.
I know that's right. Good, that's a good answer there. So let me ask you a question. Is there a such thing as turning Texas blue? And if so, can you kind of expand on what that looks like?
Well, it's really returning Texas blue. I mean, it's been a long time, but it hasn't been forever. I mean, Democrats used to dominate Texas. We've just lost our way. So is there such a thing as turning Texas blue? Absolutely. Texas used to be blue. It's just got to get back to being blue. And to get back to being blue, we just have to understand you have to, I call it mechanics and messaging. The reality of anything is you have to organize. So I'm gonna use the race car driver. You could be the best driver, best candidate. You could get in the campaign, the car, but if you don't have a pit crew that can change the tire, check the engine, make sure the fluids work, and push you back out onto the track, you're not gonna win any Formula One races. And so in Texas, we need to get the pit crew together so that we can be organized. We know the right consultants to pay money to help turn out Democratic voters, regardless of their race, whether they're in East Texas, the Metroplex, the Panhandle, or the Valley. And once we have that mechanics in place, then, candidates aren't born. Candidates are grown. And they start out as city council members, county commissioners, school board members, and you grow them up through the political process to Congress and statewide office. It's the rare exception to see somebody come from no place, quote unquote. Folks are usually well known, so they use the platform in communication, usually TV or radio, or now digital platforms. They build a following of millions of people, and folks go, well, so-and-so came from no place. Well, they didn't come from no place. They just came from a platform you weren't paying attention to into the political space and brought all their followers and supporters, and they got elected to Congress. But we can return Texas blue, and I think it's pretty straightforward and simple how we organize the mechanics to get it done.
Cool, man. I so appreciate those thoughts. And let me just ask a question, kind of a little off subject. By you being the chairman of the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats, what are two things as far as your focus is going to be in the year 2022?
So I'll go back to come forward a little bit. When I became chairman of the coalition, and I've been chairman for 2 years, I got reelected this past December. So I'm going into my second 2-year term. I looked at the numbers when you look back at the 2018 race with Beto. He lost by about 300-something thousand votes. And when I looked at the numbers, there was an extraordinary high number of Black voters who hadn't participated. A lot of people don't know this, but Texas has the largest Black population. It's not Illinois, it's not Florida, it's not New York, it's not South Carolina, it's not Georgia, it's literally Texas. Has the most Black people in America. And I went to the party and I said, if we could get the Black voter turnout up, we've got a real shot of winning. My goal was 1.5 million Black voters. Based on the state party's own statistics, we turned out 1.63 million in 2020, and we still had about 1 million Black voters who aren't registered and didn't vote. So literally for the next 2 years, the goal of the coalition is to go register and encourage other people to help us register the unregistered Black voters, to engage with voters, not just Black voters, but all voters on a regular and consistent basis. And we're trying to use technology. So this is January. We've already done a couple 100,000 robocalls around the state from December to now. We came down because now it's political season and the candidates are going to be out there. So they're going to do some of the work of touching voters. So we've shifted to infrequent voters. So people who voted for the first time in 2020 or voted once in 18 and 20, and we haven't seen them in the most recent cycle, primary or general election. We've gone back to try to reach those registered Black voters to encourage them to participate in the March primary, so that if we can get them out in the March primary, we're pretty confident we'll get them back for the November 2022 general election. In about 2 or 3 weeks, the first week of Black History Month, we'll drop a declaration of our values, a first draft of what Black Democrats see as our value to our members to ask them to provide input. And it'll be the document we pushed during the state party convention to be included in the Texas Democratic Party convention, bail reform, criminal justice reform, legalize marijuana, but, expunge people's records, legalize gaming. But when you do all these things, make sure that the Black community has access to the economic benefits. If you look around the country, we've legalized marijuana in a bunch of places, and all the people who used to make money off it illegally have been pushed aside now that it's become legalized, and they still all have records, so it'll be basic mechanics work and policy work. We're also going to try to amend the state party rules to make every precinct chair an automatic delegate and every locally elected official, Democratic official, a delegate. If you look at the data, the largest place where you find Black elected officials are actually Democratic precinct chairs and local elected official mayors, 53, 54 Black mayors in Texas, city council members, hundreds, if not close to 1,000 Black city council member, handful, about 16 Black county commissioners. So we want to make sure that they have a seat at the table.
So this just to be clear, I want everybody to hear that one more time. Texas is a no voting state, not a red state. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a disengaged state. And you know this, I'm sure, with the podcast y'all have done and in your real life experience, a lot of people just don't feel like their vote matters. And what I've been trying to explain to public officials is you got to walk your talk. You can't go out there on the campaign trail, talk big and bad about all the stuff you're going to do, and then at least not try. You're not gonna win every fight, but you got to make a fight,
right?
Because people hired you. When you get elected, you got hired for a job. The voters don't work for elected officials. Elected officials work for the voter. And what you have to do is go try to be as smart and strategic as you possibly can. And sometimes you just have to lay down a marker and say, this is how it's going to be. And I may not win this one, but when you were a kid on the playground, I'm sure a lot of us were told by our parents, don't start a fight, but always finish the fight. And so sometimes you got to go finish fights in politics so voters know that when they vote for you, you'll fight for them to the bitter end.
Man.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. For those just tuning in, we have the chairman of the Coalition of Black Democrats, Mr. Carroll Robinson. I just want to ask, and we're going to kind of stick with making sure that we get out and get people involved. How do we infiltrate some of these power groups in the Black and brown communities to get involved in the whole political process?
So I wish they were a lot of secret society power groups in the Black community, but the reality is that we know all of them. They actually need more young people to come into them. So the NAACP is still the cornerstone organization in the Black community. We now have organizations like Black Lives Matter, Black Voters Matter. So they're a much overall younger group in terms of age. But the NAACP and those kind of groups need to partner together. I'd say to younger people, young adults, young professionals, it's not as hard as you think to get involved. The trick to getting involved, and a lot of people hear this term in church, is service leadership, being a servant leader. When you show up at the first meeting, you don't have to be the president. But if you volunteer to take on the projects, it's just about like being a president, because you're going to come up with the event or you're going to write the report. You know, they give you so much influence because they put the work on you, and it's not heavy duty work, and it's constructive and beneficial. Urban League is out there, and a place that's, you know, we're drifting away from, and we need to get back to it. Whatever your faith belief, in the Black community, the church is still the best organized enterprise of anything. And so you are young and you want to bridge the generational divides. I mean, get active in your church and you'll be somebody, whether you have political aspiration or not. Like 70% of voters are 50 and older. And that means in the Black community, they're fairly regular churchgoers, or they are affiliated with the NAACP or the Urban League, or they are a member of a fraternity or a sorority. And if they have a professional degree, they're Black MBAs, Black doctors, the National Bar Association for lawyers. So there's about 10 to 15 groups when you look at it out there that you can get involved in. The links also exist out there. So there's really not that many secrets. If there is a secret, it's just show up and agree to help out. And in a short period of time, you'll have accumulated a lot of access and a lot of influence.
Man, yeah, I definitely agree. I want to ask this question. Is our expectation of following through with a Black agenda with the Biden and Harris administration, is that even realistic?
So I'm going to say it this way to you. And, you know, I've been around long enough to have this view. And in my real life, as was stated in my introduction, I'm a college professor. People don't really understand the Constitution of the United States. I'm going to tell you the dirty secret. The president has no power. The president has no power. Congress has power because Congress has to do it for the president to decide he or she wants to sign it or veto it. Their executive orders, there are limits to what the president can do by executive order. So Black people have to have this mindset. Our agenda has got to be longitudinal, and it can't be dependent on any one administration, and we can't have the mindset that we're going to get everything done all at once. And we've got to understand that the way the American enterprise of government is structured, everything doesn't happen in Washington, D.C. It's just that we're still carrying the legacy of the 60s where we had to go to D.C. to fix voting rights and civil rights. But what we're seeing now, if we're paying attention, is that Republicans have remembered that states inherently have a bunch of power separate and distinct from the federal government, and they've gone to work at the state level, which means that Black folk have got to get back to work at making sure we elect state legislators, state senators. We care about not just the governor, but the lieutenant governor, the comptroller, the land commissioner, the ag commissioner, that we care about who's the mayor, the county judge, because we can get a lot of things done for us. So you think about it this way. Who really runs elections in America? Well, the city of Dallas is in charge of running the city of Dallas election. They may hire the county to run the election for them, but they run their election. So if you really want to make sure the Dallas election or the Lubbock or the Crockett election, you got to deal with the city mayor and the city administrator. But we're not thinking about that. You want to make sure the ballot board is fair. You got to deal with the county commissioners and the county election administrator. You want to deal with voter registration issues? Hey, tax assessor collector and county clerks. So we've got to understand our agenda is vertical and horizontal, and it's longitudinal. If you put us in historic context, and I'm sorry I'm so long-winded on this.
Oh, no, you good. You good.
You know, it took us from slavery. We're going to use the 1690 date just as the benchmark date because it's the one everybody is used to, but we could go further back. But imagine we went from 1690 to 1964.
Mhm.
We've come from 64 and 65 to where we are right now. So we've made some progress in there. Republicans are trying to roll it back, but we still have an opportunity if we put our mind to it. So I'm thinking about not just Biden over the next 3 years. I'm thinking about the next 4 years. In the next 2 years, in 2024, we got a shot to elect a Democratic senator from Texas. I'd like to see an African American. Chuck Schumer, I'm sure, regrets jumping in the Democratic primary and interfering with Royce West having an opportunity. MJ Hagar was a nice lady, and she was talented, military veteran, but it hurt her when Schumer interfered in the race because to a lot of voters, including black voters, it didn't feel like she won fairly. And if he hadn't interfered and she had won, a lot of people would have seen her as, wow, she won over Royce West. They took away that aspect for her. They also took away the possibility that Senator West could have been the nominee. So we're in the party, and all the time they say black folks vote for us, but a lot of people in the party don't see black candidates as the appropriate people to carry the torch. And so that's one of the things the coalition is working on too. What's 44? This is a question to the two of y'all.
What's 44?
Yeah.
That's President Obama. Ain't he the 44th president?
Obama is the 44th president. But you know what 44 is too? 1944. That's when we ended the all-white Democratic primary in Texas. Isn't that some symmetry for you?
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I guess one of my cries is when we were brought over here from Africa, it's like we were jobs and justice. The March on Washington, our fight was jobs and justice. It's 2022 and our fight is still jobs and justice. When do we start doing stuff for ourselves and not and quit expecting for other folks to do for something that we can do for ourselves?
I agree 100% with that.
I agree. Remember, I'm a former chairman of a Black Chamber of Commerce. And this is the reality. Man, this is a good conversation tonight. I tell my students all the time, go count the number of signatures on the Declaration and the Constitution. And on each, you won't get to 100. So literally a handful of people came up with the system. I won't use scheme, even though in a historical context, I would be correct. I just won't do it tonight.
Gotcha.
Wink, wink. You didn't get that on camera and recorded it. But we've got to stop waiting for, we being black people, have to stop waiting for every black person to wake up and decide. We just need to invest in some of these young people now that are coming along with their ideas and help them become the next Jeff Bezos, the next Elon Musk, so that they could put thousands of people to work. It doesn't take a bunch of money nowadays to see somebody take an idea to reality in this age of technology. So that would be my advocacy. Is I agree, we've been on this path long enough. Now let's just look at how the system works. And the reality is how the system works is you have a handful of guys, some ladies out in Silicon Valley, almost all whites, but there's some black, Asian, and Hispanics. And all they're doing is basically playing the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally playing the numbers. They give Trey $100, $100,000 because they get together and they collect the money up collectively, and they say, Trey, we're gonna bet on your idea. They say, Ernest, we're gonna bet on you. Carol, we're gonna bet on you. And what they hope is one of the three of us hits. They don't need all three of us to hit. So you think about it this way. What happened to eBay? eBay used to be Amazon. You know, remember everybody used to talk about Walmart. Now they talking about Amazon killing Walmart.
Yeah.
So people just put together some money. They came up with an idea, and it wasn't even a brand new idea. They just said we can be better organized, and they started making money. Facebook is just, well, we'll make it easy for you to talk to your friends, and you don't even have to really talk to them, and you can pretend they're your friends.
Yeah.
And what Facebook makes money on is advertising.
Yep.
They make no money on anything they do as Facebook, other than they say to Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Weight Watchers, well, there'll be a lot of people looking at this, so advertise. YouTube does the same thing.
Yep.
You get enough people to look at you, we'll give you money.
Right.
Why? Because they go, if I get Trey, so I'm mature enough.
Yep.
I'm mature enough to remember when you went to the airport, there was a red cap to take your bag, and there was no such thing as a check-in kiosk where you checked yourself in.
Right.
Southwest figured out that they could charge you to work for them. So now you show up, you carry your own luggage, you check yourself in, you buy your own ticket, and you pay them to do all the work to get on the plane. They cut that. So we just have to have that same kind of mindset. And those of us who have that mindset just need to get together, find these young, smart, talented, young Black people graduating from these colleges with these great ideas. Some of them don't even graduate from college, but they have great ideas. Because look, Bill Gates didn't graduate from college. You know, so Trey, that's what I would say, and that's what I'm personally trying to do. You know, look, folks can talk about Robinhood and these other platforms, but they are a real opportunity to create Black wealth by smartly investing. People talk about Bitcoin. A lot of time, because something is new and you don't realize the transition is coming, you miss that opportunity. And we can't miss this opportunity, because what's happening, the generation behind me and some of my folks, we had the benefit of a lot of Black people working for government or being in the military. So that came with a pension and retirement security. That retirement security safety net is disappearing. So you got to be smart at a younger age. One of the few things I know about money, my old man taught me when he got me a passbook saving account, is the rule of compound interest. You put $1 in there and you just let that dollar sit for a long time. Take $100, buy some stocks, leave them alone. Next month, put another $100, leave them alone. Just do a little research, and don't try to time the market, bet the market. You are 30, you get to 45, you got a lot of money to really go do some other things, buy a house, you know, start a business. And so I think we've got to encourage folks to look at how to create wealth in America differently than we have in the past. Everybody shouldn't go hunting for a job. We need more people hunting to be entrepreneurs and to start business and to take advantage of the market.
Right. I'm a kind of piggyback off what you said before. We had a question in the chat that I'll let Ernest get to, but you know, I kind of compare Obama to Hank Aaron. You know, Babe Ruth had that home run record for a long time, and Hank Aaron came and broke it. You know, so as far as just with the infrastructure of Black Democrats, we looking for Willie Mays, You know what I'm saying? Because we look, Hank Aaron broke the record, but the trendsetter and the one that really set the path was Willie Mays. You know, so I think we need to get out of the mindset. Well, okay, yeah, we had a black president. No, it's time for us to take that baton and take it to the next level. We got to finish running because the race is still going. You know, and I think people have become stagnant and just, you know, content with us just having a black president. No, we need to take that baton and we need to take it to the next level. You know, we need to start having, you know, black Supreme Court justice. We need to take it to the next level and just stop being content on where we are.
So let me just touch one thing on your analogy. Racism was and is real. So my statement has got to be contextualized in the reality that was racism there.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is there are Negro baseball players that we don't even know about that were really the great players, and Hank and Willie got picked up because racism prevented the Negro League from being merged into Major League Baseball, like how we have the merger that created the NFL, because the NFL is really a holding company for two subsidiaries.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's why we have two conferences, two sides of the league that play for the championship, because they were two different football conferences and two different football leagues, and they got merged. The NBA is a holding company because they went out and merged with the ABA. So we were historically disadvantaged. We at least now legally have the ability to create an enterprise and have it merge if you want to, or settle in and grow your enterprise and get your share of the market and live a good life, making a couple $1 million a year versus a couple $100 million a year, depending on the dealer's choice. You want to keep your business or you want to sell it.
That is so true. That is so true. We do have a question from the Facebook user. And that question is, can you all speak on the mobilization of people to the polls, and what will we do differently in 2022?
So let me jump in. At least as the black voters, and then I'll pick up everybody else. I mean, we had record turnout as black voters and Democratic voters, and we still had millions of Texans who didn't vote. And so one of the things that Democrats, because I'm a Democrat, I'm wearing a Democratic hat, Democrats have got to do is we have got to start talking to people other than us three on it. We vote. We know what every election is. So sending me mail is not any added benefit. Sending mail, radio ads at a different time to the voter, the Texans who don't now vote or don't regular vote is the better use. And that's one of the things for the general election I'm trying to encourage Democratic candidates to do. The 3 of 3, 4 of 4, we done voted in every election, and special election. After you finish the primary, you need now to transition to other voters. Over the long haul, the goal in my mind for Texas Democrats is to make engagement a year-round effort. You remember, I don't know who the questionnaire was, but there's a generation of folks in America who, when I say conjunction junction, they know because it was advertised every weekend.
Every Saturday.
So my advice to the Democratic Party is we're going to find a simple message: vote Democrat. And we're going to put that up on billboards. We're going to run ads on newspapers. We're going to run that on websites. We're going to put that up on social media so that people get tired and it sticks subliminally, vote Democrat. That's what the party should be doing so that you give coverage and motivation to other folks. And then you find a couple of issues that really matter to people. As an example, I think Democrats really ought to be talking about not just fix the grid, but we need to lower our utility bills. Why do the people who failed us not let gas get to us, had our lights go out, now want to charge us for their mistake and run up my utility bills for years, money I could take to put in my Robinhood account or give to my kid to invest in his account? You know, so I think we ought to say that. And we ought to say this. Think about this. Abbott is talking about crime is on the rise in Texas. Republicans have been in charge of Texas for a generation, almost 30 years. We haven't had a Democratic governor since Ann Richard Laws. Mm-hmm. So who's responsible for crime getting high in Texas? You know, I mean, it's a great con game. You know, I grew up, I know what a 3-card Monte is, but I damn sure ain't gonna let you take my money running that, trying to blame somebody else when you were in charge the whole time. You the watchman on the job, the place get robbed, and you say, well, I don't know why they didn't put a better door on the building. No. So we got to point those hypocrisy out. You know, when Republicans talk about they want to provide property tax relief, man, I haven't seen any property tax relief yet. I looked at mine last year when it came. My house went up $60,000. Now I didn't get $60,000, but I got to go pay taxes on $60,000 in 1 year increase in valuation. And I don't live in a mansion. I know I'm doing all right, but imagine the family, single mom, married couple, and they making $45,000 a year. They saved and scrimped and they bought a house, and within 2 years, not their mortgage, but their property tax has gone up $500-$600. You know, that's the problem. So we need to be, as Democrats, we need to be talking about, hey, we're going to scrap the appraisal system as it exists now, and we're going to eliminate this automatic every year. You remember that rule of compound interest? Mm-hmm. Every year, my property value goes up 10% compounded, and you get to collect tax on that. That's a pretty sweet deal. That's not a good deal for the homeowner, for the regular Texan. And if we talk about those kind of things and actually go fix them, that will drive people out to the poll.
I agree. And let me just add on to that. Well, let me just kind of put a question where we got another question from another comment also. How important do you think it is? Because, you know, a lot of times, a lot of our candidates have no opponents. So sometimes in the years past, they've kind of become lax and don't really push the voting agenda for their prospective races because they basically already won. Do you think the focus for this upcoming election needs to be that our Democratic candidates that don't have opponents, even in November, to be pushing the agenda to get out the vote or encouraging folks to get out the vote in this upcoming election and for future?
Absolutely. But it's not just the candidates. So here's what I would do to fix the Democratic Party.
Okay.
First, we need a precinct chair in every precinct, but we got to have a job description for the precinct chair. You decided you wanted to sign up. So here's your job description. You have to go knock on every door in your precinct quarterly to verify that our data is correct. When we say Carole Robinson or Ernest or Trey live at that address, we need to double check and make sure, you know, we're going to bump it up against the change of mail address. We're still close enough to the census, so that helps us out. And we want you to call, email, text message, however you want to do it, that voter every couple of weeks to just see what's going on, what they're talking about. They could be mad, they could be grumpy, but we want to know what's on people's mind, because if we know what's on their mind, we understand what service they want, what policy they want. Then we're going to provide, the state party we're going to provide you with information that you can hand out about what our candidates, our office holders are doing. What policy did we pass? not only the president and Congress, but the legislature. It's hard sometimes for politicians to remember people aren't obsessive about what they do like they are. And so you've got to go let people know. Somewhere along the line in life, somebody said to me, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there, did it make a sound? You have to go toot your own horn. And that's what the precinct chair has to do. And if they get to know their neighbors get to know them, they know who the Democrats are, they know who the people that, even though they may not vote in the primary regularly, lean Democrat, they can talk to them about the issues that they're most interested in. So that's the first thing. Second thing, and this is a simple thing, but it hasn't been done. You got to tell the city council member, the precinct chair, or the state rep, this is how many Democratic votes we need you to help us turn out in your district in these 20 precincts that you represent, or the 30. If you don't know what you need to do, you have no idea how to get it done. And nobody in the state tells Democrats, opponent or no opponent in the general election, how many votes we need to turn out, not just for them to win, but for them to contribute to a large enough Democratic voter turnout to win statewide races. Then we do this too. So in 2022, this is just an example. Yeah, there'll be a state rep that may not have a Republican opponent, but there's a Democratic city council member or a Democratic county commissioner. So this is the theory of controlled chaos, scientific. Why are we only depending on the state rep to do voter turnout? How come we haven't recruited the city council member, the mayor of the city, the school board member, the community college trustee, and said to all of them, here's what we need help on, bring them together, let them know, hey, y'all are all working together, the pod concept, y'all are gonna be a team. And among those 5 or 6 elected officials that share those precincts, one or more of them will do enough to help you get to your number. And then you got to set up a monitoring system. So in 2020, I asked the party this question because I've been a candidate. I've won and I've lost elections. But when I put my name on the ballot and you say you want to work for me, I just got a few questions. How many votes do I need to win? And I'm going to give you some time to go look at the data and come back. And where in the district do you go to get my voters? All right. And then on election day, what's the system? And election day is now early by mail, early in person, and election day. How are you tracking people voting? So we know who's coming off the roll, and we can do it. We can track it so that we can check to see what we expect and where we expect votes to come from that are going to be for me. Are we meeting the turnout we need so I can win? If you're the Texas Democratic Party and your job is to elect Democrats, at the end of the night, every night, or at least by the next morning, you need to know how many Democrats voted in there are 9,000 precincts in Texas. In those 9,000 precincts, are they matching your turnout goal? And if they aren't, then you can pick up the phone, call the elected officials. Reality is everybody ain't gonna work hard. We've all had coworkers. So that way the supervisor can go, okay, Ernest, I know I gotta send you some help because Corolla Trey is out today. And we could pick up the slack because we know we got to load 10 boxes on the truck, or we've got to get out 15 reports. And if you're the state party and you're monitoring the turnout, you can say, hey, I don't need to spend $1,000 in Harris County. I need to put $1,000 in Dallas County because I'm behind on my numbers. And you monitor them all the way along up to election day. That's the system I think we need to build, so we're not at the mercy of the energy of any one person, elected or otherwise.
That's a
Yeah,
great point.
someone and someone had a Facebook user asked to talk about the down ballot drop off and what education we need to bring to that area. I'm gonna chime in on that, and then I'm gonna let you dissect that question as well. I think as far as this with down ballot, I think we you know, dealing with the party, we need to do more voter education. We need to educate people on the levels of the branches of government, and how just because you have a state rep don't do the same thing as your city council person. So it's almost like me having diabetes, but trying to put a band-aid on diabetes. Now I need insulin for my diabetes. So different things, different branches of government, there we should expect different things. So I think it's more so an education part where we need to start educating people. And that's where the precinct chairs come into play. That's where people, the unions. That's where all of this comes into play. Where we need to start doing more voter education. To tell people, okay, just because it's a presidential election, no, we need to vote all the way down. We just don't need to stop at the top. We need to vote all the way down. We need to go all the way down and vote. We just can't click a button and put all Democrats anymore. We need to go all the way down, but that has to be voter education, because we have to let these people know that, hey, you have, so-and-so running for city council, you have so-and-so running for mayor, so we have to always go all the way down and not just stop at the top. But that is put on us, because we have to educate people to let them know that, hey, don't stop at the top. You got to vote all the way down.
I absolutely agree with you. I'll give you two examples of solutions. So the young adults, I used to be a vice president of the Houston branch of the NAACP. When I became chairman of the coalition, I just didn't have the time to do everything. So I'm still a life member, but I stepped away from everyday participation to do the coalition. But the NAACP Houston branch young adults did a deal. I thought it was one of the most innovative things I'd seen. They created a booklet where they didn't talk to you about the name of the candidate. What they talked to you about was, here's what that office does. And I've been trying to encourage them, and I appreciate this conversation, because I got to get back to this, to have other groups replicate that, not talk about Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee or who's running for Congress, but what does the member of Congress do? What does the state rep do? What does the county commissioner do? And I actually am going to go back and talk to NAACP about that. I was just talking to Council Member Thomas before this call, because he's becoming our new state voter participation leader for the Texas NAACP. But that's an idea. The second thing, Cynthia Ginyard is county party chair down in Fort Bend County. It's the best piece of literature I've seen in the state. I think the Texas Democratic Party or somebody else may have tried to replicate it last cycle, but the Fort Bend County Democratic Party puts out a booklet of every Democrat on the ballot in Fort Bend County in ballot order, their picture and their name, nice glossy piece, big enough for folks with bad eyes like I have to read. And because the law allows you to carry material in, you don't have to carry a bunch of separate pieces. You just carry your little booklet, and you can know every Democrat, and there's like a little bio, kind of like the League of Women Voter, but not, everybody pro and con. Is just, here's something about this Democrat you need to know, so that voters can carry that in. I think that ought to be copied across the state, where the state party, in partnership with county party, you put together that booklet and you drop it actually at the top of vote by mail. Trey, I know you had this experience. Ernest, you probably have had it too. You get a call from some senior citizen and what they want to talk to you about is, do you know such and such? Because I'm filling out my mail ballot application. Is this somebody I should vote for? So literally, senior citizens the vote by mail folks, and it's not just senior citizens that can vote by mail if you have a disability, but the large bulk of them. So that's something that's got to get out to them. Like for this year, it needed to be out before the end of this month because mail ballots are already out there enrolling, so that they could have taken their time because they study. The one thing I can tell you about senior citizens, they know their business. A lot of young folk don't know what FICA means, but you ask them, some senior citizen, about their Medicare, Medicaid, their taxes, their retirement account, they can explain it all.
Yeah.
So they you know what I'm saying? They
Yes, sir.
study candidates. They don't just vote. They study, and what they don't know, they call and check in with their niece, their nephew, their daughter. They find out information, and they'll go do some research before they start checking boxes on the mail ballot. So I think those are two things that we could do to help not just senior voters, but all voters, especially if we're Democrats and we want to see that increased turnout, and send it to folks who don't have a voting history. And if you want to be cheap, then send it to everybody 40 and older that hasn't voted in a Republican primary, because the older you get, the more likely you are to become a voter. So sometimes they just need that nudge.
It's another Facebook user just stated, it was more of a statement. Yeah, Beto will win the county, and we take a slacking with judges and other offices. That's absolutely right. Because like I said, a lot of folks don't go down the ballot and cast their votes for the county judges, and like you mentioned. So whoever this Facebook user is that made the comment, you're absolutely right. But we got to, like Trey mentioned earlier, we got to change that narrative. Man, time has flown by. We have 3 minutes left. Mr. Robinson.
Give me 30 seconds on that. So
Okay.
The coalition has created a PAC focused on the election of judges because they get overlooked, not just to get them elected, but man, family law, criminal court, even civil court.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they're more important than who is governor. We want it all, but we can't forget the judges.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So I guess let me ask you one last question. Dead or alive, if you had to have dinner with anyone in particular, dead or alive, if you had to have dinner with, who would they be and why?
So for me, it's one person, and it's not because the holiday is coming up. The closest, it'll be Martin Luther King. The closest I got to see what I think Dr. King would be like, and I'd want to understand. I was in Alabama when Obama was running for president, and I'm not being disrespectful. I think it's a powerful thing when you call a politician by, they become powerful when they just become a one-namer. Yeah. But he was on the stage when he gave the Joshua Generation speech, and there were some folks disagreeing because one was for Hillary and one was for him. And he came over, and I mean, calm, cool, and he put his arms around the shoulder of both of the two people and just said, "No, this is not the time or place, and it'll be okay," to his supporter. And I thought to myself, man, he'll be all right as president, because you're running for president and somebody's not with you who you think should be, but you had the gravitas. And I want to talk to Dr. King about how did he get through all the hate, the threats, the violence, and how did he come up with the philosophical framework and strategy that drove the progress he did, where we had not been able to get that done in all that time from 1690 up through Brown versus Board of Education. And he came along. He wasn't the only leader, but he figured out how to get everybody on the same page and to come up with the strategy to help move us to where we are today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's, man.
Yeah.
And I was going to say too, I definitely agree. I think that and of course, this is just kind of me on the outside looking in. Dr. King had made the comment to Harry Belafonte before he passed, too, that, as far as just with the whole nonviolent movement, he also said that, I feel like that I'm leading my people into, a burning house, so, I definitely think that he, did, most everything right. But, I also think that, at the end, he kind of saw that he kind of had some regrets too, as far as just with the whole violence part of it.
Yeah, that's why it would be such a interesting thing, if you just take some of the highlight speeches. I mean,
yeah,
I've been to the mountaintop.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what, where did you come from with that?
Right.
Not the biblical reference.
Well, then too, he said he been to the mountaintop. He didn't say he walked through it, and he said he been to it. So, I kind of feel like that he said he's seen it, and he know he's not gonna make it, but he's seen it and know it's there.
I mean, that's, if we were in church, that's prophetic.
Yeah.
And just we all write, and when you write, it comes from someplace. Yeah. And to understand what drove him to write and give that speech, or I tell the young folks I teach, I mean, don't read the I Have a Dream part. Read the beginning of the speech. Mm-hmm. The I Have a Dream is extemporaneous, a litany he was given, and Mahalia shouted up at him, tell him about the dream, Dr. King, and he just went into a litany. But the beginning of the speech, or I'll give y'all a preview. So the coalition's newsletter on Friday is going to rerun his civil right number 1, the right to vote, essay in the New York Times. Wow. That's why I'm really interested in talking to King, because there's just so much organization, philosophical, spiritual depth. Because nobody's ever perfect, and you can see in his writing that he started to make a transition. And I think when he started making that transition, it really scared America. It's like when Malcolm came back from Mecca, and you went from seeing it as a domestic to a global struggle. Yeah, they couldn't handle that.
Oh,
King and Malcolm.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful, Honorable Rob. And when you said that, the first thing I thought about when you said I might not get there with you, and so you dead on when you said that. That's the first thing came to my mind when you said that. I said, boy, you sure right. That was prophetic. Can you just for our audience, if you could just let them know how you can be reached, whether you have a Facebook or any type of social media platform?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Twitter, on my personal Twitter, and just go on, search my name and it'll pop up. My picture is there. And I have a personal Facebook, and I'll be rolling out a couple of campaign related. You can also go to the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats website to access our social media, so you can hear and see all the stuff we're putting out. And I do a lot of policy and politics stuff, even on my personal platform. I like art and fashion, so I do a lot of Black art, Black fashion, jewelry, fashion designers, car designers. So it's an eclectic mix of the things I like and I'm interested in. I've got a son who's a musician that's in his 20s. So I can't play a lick, but I like guitars because he's a guitar player. So I've learned a lot about him. I like music because it's so calming, inspirational, and beautiful.
Oh wow,
man!
Take us out, Tremont.
Man, this was a amazing sit down. Like I said, with the chairman. He's definitely a mentor to me, and I'm definitely humbled and appreciative that he joined us for our podcast. We definitely want to give a shout out to BS3 Network as well as Roku TV, all the podcast affiliates. And like I said, this was definitely a good sit down. Thank you for Wing Snob sponsorship. Also, I want to send a plug to Target. Target is actually has Black History line. So please go and support the Black History line, because what they did was they featured young Black artists who are in the process of making Black clothes, and they definitely gave them a platform. So shout out to Target for that. Definitely want to appreciate all our listeners for tuning in. Like I said, you'll be able to check this out on Roku TV under the BS3 network, the Cigar Chronicles, and it's Chronicles with a KH. Definitely appreciate, like I said, my mentor, Dr. Carole Robinson, for definitely taking time and sitting down with us and chopping it up. So until next time, we'll definitely see you guys next Wednesday, same place, same time.
All right, bro.